Conroy Dennis Thompson. How are you doing?
I am well. I am well. It's been a while. Somebody called me by my entire name, but I'm great. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is my first time hosting a podcast for Bibliotherapy, my new YouTube channel. I'm
Hmm.
really excited about this. I'm really excited to talk about all those books in the world that people should be reading, but
Hmm.
currently aren't. And this is a way for me to provide access to those wonderful books. Yeah.
Hmm.
Having a chat about those books that people have liked over time, people have resonated with, people have connected with.
Hmm.
Um, and I just want to share those books with the world. Really excited about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's a good way, um, to present books. Yeah, to everyone. Because sometimes they will not. I mean, not everybody will know all the books in the world. But I know also that sometimes people will hear about a book and like, oh really? I didn't know about that one. Let me delve deeper into what it is. So I'm happy to be here, and to be your first guest.
Yeah. And I do want to take like the first 5 minutes talking about bibliotherapy and this whole idea about making books more accessible, I think.
Hmm.
And I've seen that a lot of people intend to read the great books of the world, but the problem has always been one of access, one of interest, one of time. And I realized that this is something that I noticed for myself that as soon as I was introduced to the topic, say on YouTube, say via a podcast, as soon as I was acclimatized to the idea of the book or the subject of the book, it was far more easy for me to read it from page one to the end of the book. It became so much more easier to just eat it all up, say in a week's time or a month's time, and I gained so much from it.
Hmm.
Um, and that is where I'm coming from. And speaking of that, I would now like to come to the way we came to the decision of deciding on this book that we are discussing today, which is The
Hmm.
Book of Regrets by
Hmm.
Juliet Solomon. I remember it was you who told me how this was such a profound book and how much of a difference it made to your life. That was ever since I've been really interested to read it.
Hmm.
It's barely 200 pages long. I remember downloading it for the first time, and it's such a concise book. And it's, I think, what differentiates it from every other book right now in the world is that it's not necessarily goes from page one to page 200. It's more like snippets, stories of so many people compiled together. And the author, for that matter, doesn't even claim herself to be the author because she's more of a compiler.
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
So I would like you to first start off by telling us how you came about this book and maybe if you can share any snippets about the author.
Um, you know, hmm, I was introduced to this book. I think it was a conference that I attended um years ago, and it was a self-development conference. And somehow somebody mentioned in passing, it was not one of those resource material for the conference. It was just something that was said in passing, and I'm like, Book of Regrets, let me see what this is about. And hmm, when I tell you that after reading these stories, as you mentioned, it's just snippets of all these patients, pretty much, who the author would have, for want of a better word, interviewed, to really hear from them what life meant to them and where they are now. You know, some of them being terminally ill and all of these things. And when I tell you some of the key points that came out, I kept like, what? So you mean to tell me that you would have lived your life thinking about what everybody else around you is thinking of you? One, two, thinking what kind of life you should be living. Um, I need to get permission from somebody to be who I want to be, or study what I want to study, or go where I want to go, or eat what I want to eat. And that was, those stories were, they resonated because at that point in my life, I too was a little bit more on the, I was very guarded. I was guarded for so many reasons. I, the self-esteem issues and trying to people please, and let me do it this way because everybody want me to do it this way, or let me do this, let me study that, let me look for this particular type of job because. And after reading that book, I felt so liberated because one thing that stood out to me, and it was not explicitly said in the book, but it was understood for me, is at the end of your life, when you lay on that bed and you look to your left and you look to your right, the persons who would have held you in those cages of their thoughts and their opinions and what you should do or what you shouldn't do, they will not be there. They won't. They, you look around, they're not there. You have to now contend with living with yourself in your head for the remainder of your life, thinking, what if I had done things the way that I wanted to do it? What would my life look like then? And ever since that day, it would have colored my outlook on how I show up. We discussed this before, how intentional I am with every detail of life. Um, what I do or don't do on my own terms, and trying to understand that while I will not live recklessly, I will live with more intention of showing up for me, doing what I want to do when I want to do it, because it's sad that when, in the book, you read it, it's sad when persons would have gone through their lives and to look back and to be so reflective and to have so many regrets, to have so many. I mean, you're going to have it because we're human beings. We will not always choose the right alternative because that's how life is. We cannot see beyond now. But one of the things that I know that hurts more than something not going the way that you want it to go is to think about what if it had gone the way that I want it to go, if I just had tried it. So these are the things that really, really resonated with me, and pretty much it changed how I look at life. It changed how I show up for myself. It changed how I attack certain things. It changed how I I take on every single opportunity there is in front of me. I am going to weigh the pros and the cons, but again, I am going to make the decision for me, not because of what somebody else is going to say or what somebody else's opinion is of that particular thing. Oh, no, 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 you should become I mean, listen, when I was growing up, I grew up in Jamaica, as you know, and I don't know what it is like from where you're from, where there's only certain particular respectable jobs,
Yeah.
or you can only be one thing. I don't subscribe to that. We are so multidimensional as human beings. Why should we just settle for being one thing when there are seasons of life that will take you through different, I call them, dispensations of your life. I've been so many things. I was a choreographer at one point. I wrote books, but I did not stay in those moments because I feel like that's the circle of life. You never ever waste any of your experiences. Experience, good or bad, is always experience, and you're going to
Yeah.
use it. You understand what I mean? You're going to use it. So
Yeah.
this book, for me, it single-handedly, apart from the Bible, is one of those books that really, literally, um, kind of set off a light bulb, and I needed it at that time because I was like a river, just running, 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 and because of my past traumas and all of the whatever that I would have endured back in the days, I I was just people pleasing. Everything that
Yeah.
everybody tried. No, you should be doing this. No, you should be doing this. I was all over the place because I could not find my own voice. I could not find my own reasoning. I just thought that everybody else was right. And meanwhile, inside there was this, like, no, there is no, this is not what I want to do. I want to do this. This battle was going on. And when that book came about, it was like an unlocking that took place, man. It set off that light bulb, one, and two, it unshackled. It unshackled like my mental state. It's like I was freed from a prison of all those years. You know.
This comparison that you made with the book coming across and being as important to you as the Bible, I'll say something about that. I remember when I first started this book, much like the Bible, it's not necessarily something that you go from page 1 to page 100. It's something that you
Mhm.
absorb in snippets. It's the verses that you take in one after the other. In fact, you're not recommended to read the Bible from page 1 to page 100. You're recommended to
Mhm.
read it on a day-to-day basis, yes,
Mhm.
but you consume it over a period of time, seeing what the
Mhm.
verses are important to you. Similarly, with this book, I felt like the format felt very similar.
Mhm.
Um, at no point did I feel that, oh, I should be reading this story after the next, like after the last one. It always seemed like, oh, I can open the book wherever I want, whatever I'm feeling like today, and I can really absorb the story, the person's story that I'm going through. And each story is like a little verse. It's hardly uh, longer than a page at best.
Mhm.
And I do want to talk about the author and how Juliet Solomon and how she doesn't regard herself as the author of this book and more of a
Mhm.
compiler of all these stories. So she's a
Mhm.
neurologist by profession, and she works in the UK. And for all the many patients that she had over the years, she simply
Mhm.
asked them this one question: what is life's biggest regret? And when you first recommended this book to me, I thought that this is going to be a sob story,
Mhm.
right? I thought this is going to be
Mhm.
like people's worst regrets put together, and like it can as bad as it can be, right? That's what I thought. But no,
Mhm.
it's more light-hearted than you think it is. It obviously hits you once in a while. It hits you really hard when it does. But on other times, I felt it was so subliminal. It was so plain at times, and at times downright comical. There are some people
Mhm.
who laugh out loud at their regrets of their life, and there are some really interesting stories that I came across. And reading it, I can't even tell you the kind of feeling that I've had reading
Mhm.
people's stories and their regrets. It puts you in a very different position as a
Mhm.
human being. It is an experience like no other.
Mhm.
Absolutely like no
Absolutely.
other.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I'm happy that you mentioned the lightheartedness about it because guess what? They would have known at that point in time that there's not much that they could do either. Just what do you do at that point? And sometimes even when we make mistakes, I don't know about you, sometimes you make a mistake and you look back and you're like, you laugh about it because you're like, wow, how could I, you know, what happened? You have two ways you can look at things, you can beat yourself up about it, or you can learn whatever it is that you need to learn and move on and take it how you need to take it, you know, because I wanted to eat ice cream and I didn't eat ice cream. I should have had the ice cream, that, that type of thing. You know, that's a little bit more light than a career path that you wanted to take and couldn't take. So yeah, it's these stories that she and for her, I can see why she would not want to think that she's an author, because for her it's like I'm just I'm just writing your story. I am just putting it in these bite-sized pieces that persons can digest. I am not the author of your life. You're telling me. I'm just simply just putting it on paper, And I can see why she would think that way, because um, it speaks to who she is as a human
Yeah.
being, and the fact that she genuinely cared for these people. It is not a case where, oh, let me see how I can write a bestseller of these people's life or whatever it is. No, you can tell the care that she had for them. And for her to even make that statement, it shows that she was not really doing it for to become. She just really wanted to share um, these stories that she felt were necessary to be told, because again, halfway around the world, she didn't know that somebody in Jamaica would have read that book and felt the way that they could wake up to life, um, based on on those pages. You understand what I mean? So it just speaks to the author and who she is as an individual.
Yeah.
And I mean, the fact that even after having shared the book with you so many months ago, for you
Yeah.
to it's still it, because it must have, in your mind, you're like, oh wow, I really need to see what this book is about, because there's not one deep conversation that me and you that we would have had where this book didn't come up for me, especially when I'm
Correct.
talking about my life and what it is that and how I show up for life, because again of the impact that it has.
Yeah. I want to talk about some of the stories that really got me going and really convinced
Mhm.
me for this book. I think I'll start with something which was lighter, but at the same time, very important. I think in the first 10 pages, you come across this story of Sir John Major,
Mhm.
who was the prime minister and leader of the Conservative Party between the 1990 to 1997. And I'm just going
Mhm.
to read his story. It's barely a paragraph.
Mhm.
Um, Here it goes. It is very easy to look back and wish life had been different. I left school before my 16th birthday with absolutely no regrets at the time. But later, I often wondered how differently my life would have been had I continued my education and gone to university. And yet, on balance, I learned a great deal by not doing so. I learned what life was like as a manual laborer, as someone who was unemployed, and as a young banker in Nigeria during the Biafran War. I saw poverty and hardship on a massive scale and learned how
Mhm.
lucky I was. Such experiences left me with no regrets. That's saying
Exactly.
something. That's coming
That's
from a
saying a lot.
prime minister. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. You know,
yeah.
um, it's because I mean he and that's again and that's the beauty about life. You just don't know. You won't know you won't know what that alternative path would have led to. You don't, you know, um, because one could look at it, because I could look at it to say that he learned way more than he could have learned in school, on the path that he's on, or maybe not. Maybe he didn't. Maybe his life would be a little bit different or a little bit easier. He would have gotten to that representational politics in a different way, but he still got there. But it's the beauty of life, that's the ebbs and flows that happens, where you just don't know. You
Yeah.
just don't know. And his story, I mean, very, very inspiring, for someone who didn't finish school, but then ascended to one of the highest um, offices in the world.
Correct.
You
Yeah.
understand what I mean? So it goes to show that life, boy, the path, whatever path you choose, that path. That's what I'm trying to say to whoever, to the watchers. You choose your path and you make the most out of that. So if that path is, listen, I really wish I could have gone back to school, but I don't have the resources to do so. What is it that I have now that I can work with? No. Let me make the most of that. No. And if down the line, because we see people go back to school 8 years old, that person's like, why does this person's graduated with a bachelor's degree at 82? Why is she wants to do it? And we read about those people all the time. They just want to. It's not that they're doing it to find a job. No, that's her life's dream. Let me do it. You understand what I mean? So that's again the circle of life, the seasons of life. It plays in every way, and that's with him. He was a manual labor at some point, and a banker, whatever it is. But if you notice, with him, to get to where he ended up, he must have had in his mind and in others success doing whatever it is that he's doing. And that's why success don't look to me like it looked to you. It's different.
Yeah.
Success for everybody is a different thing. Some people, their life success is to own a home and get married and have 5 children. That's success for them. Meanwhile, you have some success is millionaire, I drive the best car. That's my success. I don't want to have family. I don't want to. People view success differently. And that's why you choose the path and you live the path that you want to live, not what somebody else is. The white picket fence is not for everybody. I know it's not for me. So I am not going to be like, oh, I need to be running down that white picket fence and all. That's not for me. You get where I'm going? So you, on the other hand, may have other aspirations and dreams and stuff like that. Don't let anybody tell you what your dream is supposed to be. The dream is not external. The dream is internal. You get that dream before anybody else. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my
Choose
view.
your success.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Choose your own success.
Mm-hmm. And work at it, because he as humble as a beginning, because he could have decided, you know what, I didn't go to school, so let me not even venture down.
I'm going to give up. Yeah.
Let me exactly. Let me stay in my lane, and that's another thing. That's a different podcast, because I am here to tell people that we don't have lanes. We don't have a lane. We put ourselves in lanes, or we allow others to say, stay in your lane. This is not yours. Why are you starting a podcast? There's 1,500 other podcasts. There could be 2 million other podcasts. Yours is different because you're coming from a unique perspective. We can all be talking about the same thing, but we have different ideas. And that's what we're not robots. And that goes back to what I was saying about us being multidimensional. You're coming from a different standpoint, a vantage point than what I could have, because guess what? You are from a different place. Maybe your experiences are different and all of that. So there's no such thing. So he could have said, you know what, I didn't go to school, you know, and I only have I dropped out before 16 and I need to only be a manual laborer. No, why should you subject yourself to just that? You know, why? And these are the stories that inspire me, because you don't, it is never where you start. It is never about where you start. You know, it's how you get to where you want to go. And he could have decided, you know, let me just sit over here, be quiet. Let me just go over this side. Let me just continue with, you know, what I do, me in my little small corner. And I don't believe in small corners. I don't do small corners. I don't do own lane. It's a no for me. Be everything that you can be. And I remember when I had this conversation with you, I don't know if you remember this, when, you know, I'm thinking I need to start writing. I said, write. Why not write? And when you found that you love it, you write so well. You know, I think I need I want to talk about books. I need to start a podcast. Do it. Why should you not do it?
Yeah.
You understand what I mean? We are multidimensional. We should not be shackling our mental or mindset to, oh, you just need to stay in your lane. There's no such thing.
Yeah.
There's no such thing in my book.
Ever since we had that discussion, I was pretty pivotal at the time. I am around 14 blogs in, 10,000 words written, and having started my own first podcast. I'm pretty excited about it.
Absolutely. You see, what if you had decided, you know what, let me stay in my lane and let me just. No. You see, once, as I mentioned, dreams are internal. They start inside. Sometimes we kill it before we can even speak about it because of what is happening around us. Oh, I don't need to start a podcast because there's so many other podcasts. Oh my, there's so many other people in the space. And there's so many other persons writing. There's so many other there's so many others. But I will say this. Each of us have our own audience. There is something that each of us have inside that we have to deposit outside for that one person. You always think of that audience of one. That audience of one. That's how I write. That's how I do whenever I do my little clips. I think of one individual, that audience of one that will see this from a fresh perspective and think about, oh, wow, I never thought of it this way before. Let me try it this way. Because really and truly, ultimately, that's why we are here. A lot of us think that we are here just for us. We are not. We are not here. If that was the case, then we would not have feelings. I'm telling you that. We would not have empathy. We wouldn't have ambitions. Because then all of those things, look at how you feel when you do something for somebody. How does that make you feel? If it was a case that we got these things for ourselves, then we would just close up in a room and be doing it for ourselves. But it does not give us any satisfaction when we do it for ourselves. No. It's just like with your gifts and your talents. If you're a singer and you only sing in the bathroom, who is going to hear? If all you do is sing to yourself, who is that gift helping? Because it's not going to help you. Because the gift is not for you. The gift is to give. and it is through that giving that's how you receive whatever it is you receive, how you feel about it, and it inspires you to move on to other things. That's why when I write, that's how I write. That's how I write my books. I think about the hands. I cannot tell you. Last week, there's this guy that is in the US who wrote to me, sent me a WhatsApp message. I lent somebody your book, Conroy, and trust me, they're just so over. They cannot believe that, you went through all of this, and it's so powerful and it's helping them. That's why I write. I don't write for me,
You
because
write for
I would
yourself.
have lived it, so I know my own story. But why then do I put it in a book format and release it to the world? Because there may be somebody else who would have gone through abuse, who have gone through whatever else it is, and don't know how to make it forward or to push forward. And somebody else is saying, no, listen, I would have done this, I would have gone through that. This is what I would have done. This is what I would have gone through. This is the steps that I took. See if it can help you. Simple.
Makes sense.
So don't, don't, and his story, that prime minister's story, that man's story, say to me, don't think about limitations. Don't think about, there are things that would have happened that, you wish, what if I had gone to school? My life would have been a little bit. You took what you had and you made the most of it.
Yeah. I'm going to run through some other stories
Mm-hmm.
that really touched me.
Mm-hmm.
They was as small as the one we just went through, but
Mm-hmm.
still, I think they had a huge impact. Another one of these stories is by Dame Mary Peters.
Mm-hmm.
She is a former pentathlete and an Olympic medal winner. And she says barely two lines. She says, "My mother died when I was 16. I regret her not being alive to be able to share in my sporting success. She was a loving and caring mom, and it would have been nice to have spoiled her."
When I read hers, I cried.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I cried
yeah,
when I read hers because
yeah.
I thought of my grandmother immediately when I read hers. How my grandmother would have sacrificed everything for me to be successful. And she was not around to enjoy the successes. I would have, and that's her exact sentiment was what gripped me. I was like, I wish I would have spoiled her, and that for me, it that part, that was what kind of started the whole waterworks for me with that book. And I'm like, yeah, because again, these are the little things. These are the little things that not only, Dame, but and me and other persons, there are other persons who would be thinking the same thing. My brother, for example, he lost his mom right before he made it big as an architect. And ever so often, I wonder, because he was the only child for her, and he wanted to 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 give her everything. You understand what I mean? So these stories, and as you read these, and I'm sure when you read through them, you find that hmm, these stories are not unique.
Yeah.
These are universal stories.
Mhm.
These are stories that will resonate with people all around the world, because there are so many who would want to spoil their own parents, but the parents are not around to enjoy the successes. The parents would have made sacrifices for these children, and that all that kids want is I wish my mom was around or my dad was around to see this or to experience this. Or we hear these things every day, you know.
Yeah.
But when you see it in that tangible that book, and you can churn over it, and because I remember reading that, and as short as that section was, I couldn't get through it in one reading
Yeah.
because it touched me on a deep level. You know, I'm like, okay, let me close this thing. You know, because I know started to reflect on my own journey with my grandmother and whatever it is. And you know, these are the things that these are some of the things that we have no control over. And we have to be okay with that as well. You know.
It's nice to reflect on that, having, reading such a book and coming across these experiences. This was definitely on the harder end of things. I
Mhm.
think I would like to read a story which just absolutely made me laugh when I was not be expecting myself to laugh reading such a book. So the
Mhm.
story is by Anne Daniels,
Mhm.
who is a polar explorer. Um, the story is like about 2 paragraphs long, so just
Mhm.
bear with me on this one. She says, there are over 500 miles of moving snow and ice between Canada and the geographic North Pole. Temperatures can be as low as minus 48 degrees, and there is only a small chance of success. Many expeditions have tried and failed to reach the pole. In 2002, when I put together what was to become the first all women's team to walk to the South and North Pole, the decision was made not to take toilet paper on the expedition to the North Pole. Every piece of equipment, together with food and fuel, has to be hauled to the pole in huge sledges, and weight is a crucial factor in success or failure. Anything that was not needed for survival or did not contribute directly to the success of the journey was ejected. All wrappers were removed. There was no soap, deodorant, books, or music, and no toilet paper. Unfortunately, for the first 27 days, we were subject to the most appalling temperatures and conditions. The terrain was monstrous, and we were hit by 3 storms, one so severe that we couldn't erect the tent and had to huddle under the material for 3 days with little food and water. Every member of the team suffered frostbite to some degree. Pom's toes were particularly bad, and Caroline had frostbitten fingers. This meant that for a few days, Caroline could not use her hands very well, couldn't expose them to the elements outside, and most certainly couldn't handle snow wedges to clean her bottom. As the one person on the expedition who has children, I was used to taking care of people who had difficulty dressing themselves. I was happy to tie bootlaces, overjoyed to fasten harnesses and ski bindings and zip up jackets, but my one regret during the whole expedition was the decision to not take toilet paper.
Yeah, that was one of the more lighter ones for real.
I was
Um,
I was not expecting this. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, and again, things happen in life that you're going to look back and like, I should have ate that ice cream that day. Listen, I can tell you, there are there are certain things that you go through, um, and again, that's what makes life such a dynamic thing, such a such a thing that you enjoy, such a thing that you cannot just say, um, oh, life is hard, or you because unless, oh, and I don't even want to say it, unless you're somebody that is being tortured for every single day of every moment of every day of your life, you cannot live a life free and say that life is the hardest thing. Only life is always hard. Again, unless it's those circumstances where persons are just suffering constantly. that aside, um, there are there are moments, there are light moments in life, you know, that you look back and you're like, what was I thinking? That type of thing. And that story was one of those like laugh out loud. I'm like, why wouldn't? But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ways that this book made me feel was like all the emotions in the span of 1 hour. I have cried, I've felt grateful, I've laughed. Okay, yes, books are capable of that very much, and that's why I read books. But this was so much stronger. I think it's
Oh yeah,
because the
oh yeah,
stories are from people who are
real.
famous, who have made it, from
Mm-hmm.
people who are like us,
Mm-hmm.
everyday people. And it's such a beautiful culmination that it makes you go above, you know, just your own way of being, your own
Mm-hmm.
thoughts and your own troubles, and it rises you above that, and you
Mm-hmm.
makes you look at life and people more holistically,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I think, absolutely worth it. This book, for that very reason, is so worth it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah.
and yeah, go ahead.
I mean, you know, I all I love sharing. I love sharing gems, with people and stuff. Had a conversation yesterday, um, about, you know, showing up for life and showing up for our own life, in every way that we can. You know, my I was having this conversation with this individual who, for the first 29 years of his life, he said that he could only exist. He couldn't live because he had an illness that at any moment it could have taken him out of life. And he said for 29 years of treatments and 29 years of constant scares and hospital visits and overnighting and days in the hospital, and couldn't play, like the other kids, or couldn't do activities as other persons could, that we take for granted. And he's like, I feel as if I got a second chance of life. And I said to him, you did. You know, luckily for you, a surgery that could have corrected, your condition came about and it was successful. Not many people with your condition live beyond a certain age. One. And I remember one day, um, he was going to the gym, and I said to him, it must feel good that you're able to do this. And he was like, Conroy, I am doing every single thing that I did not have the opportunity to do. Simple things that people take for granted every single day. I'm so grateful that I'm able to do these simple things. And I remember sharing with him yesterday. I said, "You remember that conversation? That was one of our first conversations we had." And I said to him, "Don't stop. Don't stop, because if you don't show up for your own life, nobody else will show up for you. No one else will. You have to make that effort to show up for you, to show up intentionally for you, because we will look at all the challenges there are around us, and oh, we can't do this because of that, and we can't do this because of that. Oh, I can't study because, um, I'm having a headache, whatever it is. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, when you look at the larger picture of life, and you look at how as tiny as we are in the bigger picture, without us, that picture is still incomplete because we are a part of somebody else's world. And how we show up or not show up for ourselves does affect other people. It affects our loved ones around us. If we struggle to get out of bed every single day, or there's a moment in time where we feel, oh, I cannot go any further. I don't want to speak to anyone. It affects somebody else. Because then that loved one who is used to speaking to you on a daily basis, who, without even saying it to you, enjoy that conversation with you, they are now being deprived of that conversation, something that you don't know is helping them. Am I saying you're going to show up anyway and not feel how you feel? Absolutely not, because we're all human beings and we are going to feel how we feel. But what I'm saying is don't dwell there in that space, because when that is the trap. When you dwell there, when you get to that place of, I don't want to talk to anybody today, and that one day becomes 2 days, it becomes a week, and then all of a sudden you don't even notice how you're changing, because that is even how manic depression sets in. Because there are going to be days when you're tired. There are going to be days when you don't feel like, oh, I really don't feel like having a conversation today. That's okay. But don't dwell in that space because it's unhealthy. It is unhealthy when you sometimes have to be your own jumper cables. I don't know if where you're from, you have vehicles that the batteries run out and you have to get another van vehicle and it comes up close and then they take two jumper cables and they're like, okay, let me give you a jump start to get you to where you can replace your battery. Some days you have to be your own jumper cable. You have to. And you always, there's this saying, who saves the hero? Who is the savior of the hero? When that hero wants that savior, where does that hero turn?
Who
Who
is it?
who that hero turns to? You know? So
Yeah.
I just say all of that to say, show up. Show up for you. Show up for you, knowing that there are other persons depending on you.
It's actually
Yeah.
a very beautiful analogy of jumper cables, and you're right. That's something that we all ought to do to ourselves once in a while, and we need it. We This is exactly how it feels. It feels like a shock putting yourself through a difficult day, but then it matters, right? It matters to put yourself on the table. It matters putting yourself across, putting your ideas across, putting your actions across. And I'm so happy that you interjected this part about showing up, because that was going to be how I wanted to end this conversation anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would like to tell the viewers of this podcast that one way that Conroy Dennis Thompson has really inspired me is by that one thing. I mean, I have had elements of this in myself, but having seen these elements in someone else and someone who's practicing it a lot better than I am, I was really inspired to see you on a day-to-day basis, showing up in classes, showing up at work, showing up with people more so, and into their lives, interactions with them, something that I have always aspired to do. Especially when it comes to people, I can do it with work, I can do it with being on time, but I've always felt that gap when it came to showing up for other people every single day. And it didn't matter where those people came from. They could be simply living in your surrounding, they could be in your class, they could be at your workplace. But showing up for the sake of them, that is an aura you exemplify so well. And that is exactly what I wanted to talk about. And I believe that after having read this book, the only antithesis to whatever I have read so far, regrets, and the only real prescription to life, or I think a better way of saying is the cure to the common life, would be showing up every single day. 100%. This is something that even my
Absolutely.
father used to tell me: show up 100%, give your 100% no matter what, or don't do it. Don't do it otherwise.
Hmm.
Give
Hmm.
yourself first. Give
And
yourself out.
that's me. That's me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's it's so funny. I am someone. It's all or nothing.
Mm.
If I am, people say that I'm extra. I'm extra because it has to look a certain way, or it has to be done a certain way, or if it's a presentation, it must look. That's how you show up, because you are. It's a okay. I say this whether I'm doing, I'm talking to you young people about how they show up for their jobs. I always tell them, by the end of your shift, that shift that you just completed, or if it's a if it's if it's something you're doing for someone, meaning they're paying you to do um, a flyer, or they're paying you to design um, their website, or they pay you to come and conduct a workshop, or they pay you to to serve tables, whatever that thing is. At the end of it, whatever you give to them, it's as if you're handing them your business card. You're handing them your business card. So look at it when you're showing up, especially if you're working, or you're in your classes, or just volunteering, whatever it is. Show up as if you're handing somebody and your business card, saying, hey, this is me. This is what I represent. This is what you're going to judge me on. This is the work that I'm put. This is my output. Look at it. You understand what I mean? Um, and that way you start to become a little bit more aware, because the awareness is now what you're going to use to build that confidence in how you say hello to a stranger, and not just saying hello in passing, but saying hello to listen. Because oftentimes connections are made not by what is being said. It is not. It is by what is not being said. Because a lot of persons, we just feel that, oh, they're smiling and they're always going and everything is fine. No, you don't know. And sometimes it's that moment that you take to really see them, not just look at them, but see them, and not just hearing, but listening to them, that you can make that connection, and you realize that, wow, um, you see that they help you or you help them. I really am happy that we have this conversation today, because this really helped me. Or, you know, I can't tell you how many times I hear that, and it would have just been something in passing on a normal basis. How are you doing? And you just keep it moving. But slowing down enough. How are you doing? And listening. How are classes going? How are the exams going? It's exam time. You have any challenges with whatever it is? These little moments give people an understanding that, listen, I'm not alone. And in a world that is becoming more and more, divided because of this device, the phones, and we're in our own little world and our own little bubble. You don't understand. A lot of people out there are lonely. They're in a room full of people, but they feel lonely.
Yeah.
So that's so
And I
much.
don't, yeah, I definitely don't want one of my regrets to be something that I also read in the book, was seeing a room full of people, a room full of a crowd, and not even trying to know even one of them.
Hmm.
That's my fear, because I know I
Hmm.
can be like that.
Hmm.
And I really need to, if I decide today to show up every single day, then I'll need to make sure that I get to know that person that I'm so fearful knowing. Because
Hmm.
yeah, that's how I will look at that aspect of my life. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Conroy. I think this has been a great discussion. I've had a wonderful time reading Book of Regrets, and that's thanks to you. I would have never found this book had it not been for you. And I'm going to recommend it to all the people who are perhaps watching this podcast and otherwise, that you should definitely check this book out. It's readily available at Amazon for a reasonable
Hmm.
price, but it's a book, and it's a piece of literature that they're never ever going to regret. So
Never.
thank you, Conroy. Thank you for showing up. Yeah.
You're welcome, and thank you. Thank you for always holding space to see me, and always making the effort to say, hey, let's connect. It can, in a world where things are just all the way, sometimes we need that anchor to kind of say, hey, come in, pull in, and let's connect. So I'm really, really, really happy for you. I'm loving this new journey for you as well. And I hope that it will grow from strength to strength, and it will be, you know that you're fantastic. So I don't have to say much where that is concerned.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, man, definitely. Take care of yourself. Good seeing you.